What lovely way to start the morning. Would like to say welcome to everyone. I'm Marilyn George. I'm the platform assistant today. And I would like to welcome everyone to take out their phones and like, share, comment, being at Unity today on this beautiful Sunday. And please make sure then to make sure the volume is down or turned off on your phone. And we also have a new nursery that if you have children that you can go in there and you can still be a part of the service and see the service. So with that, we will have our song, Oh God, Our Help in Ages Past. Page 38. Thank you, Gary and Jerry, and the congregation. Gary and Jerry are part of our music team. We have Mike and Michael as part of our production and keeping us up with our electronics and on Facebook. Trustee of the day is Billy. If you have some questions, he'd be happy to answer those. Of course, I am Marilyn, and so today's meditation will be led by Debbie Allen. So tomorrow night is board meeting at 6:30. It's an open board meeting, I assume? Yeah. Okay. Also, our annual meeting is September the 19th. That's coming up. Would like to invite everybody to be here on that day. That is, especially if you're a member. Well, even if you're not a member, we want you to be here. And it will be after service on the 19th. And also, as part of that annual meeting, we have openings for on the board. If you are interested in that, please see one of the board members. I've served on the board once, and I can tell you that while it is work, it is a very enjoyable experience, and the board is very supportive of each other and the congregation. It's a very good board. We need volunteers to read Inspiration of the Day, so if you're interested in that also, I guess you can see one of the board members, and we can make that happen. We continue to be part of the Earth Care team, and so if you're interested in being a part of that team, you can see myself, or let's see, I know Janet Johnson's a part of that. Are you a part of that, Ann? No. Okay. Michelle Grebe is. Marilyn Wiley is. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, you can also see one of us. We need volunteers for the Pride Festival, August the 28th and 29th. I'm not sure who's overseeing that. Does anybody know who you'd want to talk to?
We still have a sign-up sheet by the door on that table. It's got a few blanks on it still. Thank you very much.
Okay. So lots of opportunity to support the congregation and the community. And now we're going to have, next Sunday, we welcome Reverend Stephen Uri Ross. That sounds awesome. So we'll welcome him. And then now we will go to the inspiration of the day, and Neely has volunteered to read the daily word for us.
Sorry, my fault. Let's do this affirmation
No, that's
real
my
quick.
fault, yeah. Okay, we are still looking for the minister, so we are going to affirm that. So if you would say with me together, the right minister in the right timing is coming to serve the unity of Joplin with strong vision, energy, compassion, and faith. Thank you, God. And now we welcome Neely.
Good morning, everyone. Today's word is joy. I say yes to the joy that invites me in this moment. Joy is the call of my heart. Whether I am at work or at play, I bring a spirit of joyfulness to everything I do. More than a mood or an attitude, joy is part of me and mine to live and to share. Like all aspects of my divine identity, joy flowers in my consciousness when I hold joyful thoughts and feelings. I express my joy as the excitement of anticipation, fascination at a new discovery, deep satisfaction in a relationship, and the tranquil glow from communing with God in prayer. My joy is contagious, and I love to share in it. I have feelings of joy when I take part in a friend's or family member's joyous moments, their celebrations and accomplishments. I feel quiet joy when I offer encouragement and even when I give comfort. Grateful to share the care and love of God. Rejoice always from 1 Thessalonians 5:16.
Thank you, Neely. And as we know, there are many opportunities to find joy and rejoice in the day. So now we're going to do our next song, The Lord is My Shepherd. And that's page 348. Also, if you would like to stand again, we will sing it together.
Am I on? Okay. Take a moment to sit back in your seats. Feel the chair support you. Imagine it's the hand of the Father caressing your back. Feel your feet on the floor, being grounded, knowing that you are safe and secure. Take a deep breath in Feel it go in. Feel your lungs and feel your heart. For the heart is at the center of all. That's where God dwells in each and every one of us, is in the heart. When we pray, we do the talking, but when we meditate, we listen for God. So we shall listen for a few seconds. We each do a form of meditation in one way or another every day. But there's something blessed and sacred when it's a group meditation together. And for those opportunities to be together today and to share, we say thank you, God, and amen.
Thank you, Debbie. It's always nice to be reminded of our heart center and how it is such a part of what we do and a part of our meditation and a part of our joy. And speaking of being part of our joy, we come to our sacred exchange, which is our joy in giving. And there are several ways you can give. One is you can text give to 833-368-0897, or you can mail a check to Unity of Joplin, P.O. Box 1207, Joplin, Missouri 64802. And of course, if you're here today, you can give cash, check, cards, and I believe that you can still go online and donate online also if you would like. So now we're going to talk about our blessing, our prosperity blessing. So if you would say with me our blessing. In a universe overflowing with the allness of God, all the needs of Unity of Joplin and those we serve are bountifully met. Perfection known and unknown, expected and unexpected. Our abundant good is here now. Thank you, God. So I'd like to welcome you all now as we dedicate these blessings and givings to the right work of God. These tithes and offerings are dedicated to the will and work of Spirit through Unity of Joplin for the highest good of all. And now we'll have a special song from Gary and Jerry, When You Wish Upon a Star.
a star is born. They possess a gift or two. One of them is this: they have the power to make a wish come true. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dreams, your request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do. Fate is kind. She brings to those who long the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dream comes true. Fate is kind. She brings to those who long the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. Your dreams come
Oh, good morning. Just want to help you all this morning. Hope you don't mind, but I have a need that kind of challenges me at times. And I'd rather be concentrating on you all than concentrating on my need. Okay, many of you have been in Unity for a lot of years. So who could tell me who made this statement? Usually my voice carries so well, they tell me I need to be quiet. I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit illness. Myrtle Fillmore. But do you know that she is not the original person who came up with that statement? Does anybody know who that was? Well, back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a large contingency of the New Thought movement starting to come together. And because they weren't divided into individual sects like we are now, they would all come together for these wonderful meetings. And Charles and Myrtle attended one by E.B. Weeks. And E.B. Weeks is the one who said, I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit illness. Now that was a powerful statement. That statement went through Myrtle, she just took it into her total depth. Now a little history about Myrtle. Myrtle was born very frail, very, sickly all the time. And they told her she had TB and that she would be lucky if she lived till she was 35. But that statement went through her. told her, you have TB in your family, and that's the way it's going to be. You just might as well be happy with that. And that statement kept coming back to her. Well, if I'm a child of God, if I believe I am truly a child of God, how can I inherit illness? God's not ill. God's not sick. Now, another word that they replace for illness a lot of times is disease. And if you look at the word disease, it means dis-ease. Dis-ease within the body, within the mind, within the heart. But never, ever, ever is it within the soul. The soul is where we meet with God. That's where God is within us. And it's never, never ill. It's never diseased. So Myrtle started in thinking that she was going to take those words into her life every day and figure out and call it forth and say, let's prove it. Now, the one thing I want to tell you, Myrtle was an innovator. She did a lot of things. Charles was the skeptic. When she told him she was going to heal himself, crossed his arms and he said, okay, go ahead, I'll watch. In the end, it was Charles who did all the writing and put forth all the message of unity, because it was what he saw happen within Myrtle when she realized she was a child of God. Now, Myrtle kind of went through a process to make this all come through. And so what she, first of all, had to come into knowing is that in the beginning, God. You could stop that sentence right there. You don't need to tell me that God created the heavens and the earth. He created the animals. God is. God is each and every one of those things in life today. And in Jeremiah 1:4-6, it tells us, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I knew each and every one of you. I knew you before you were born, and I set you apart. I appointed you, and I anointed you. And Myrtle thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't that be wonderful? God knows me. And so she went into that time of knowing that there is only one God. Disease is a fallacy. It's a lie. It's not true. Because if I'm a part of God and God is never ill, how can I be ill? So she thought about that, and so she thought, well, if I'm a part of God, that means God is within me, the Christ within me. And many times we hear that Jesus said, it is not I that does the work. It was the Christ within me. It was the Father within me. Jesus came to be a human being to show us how to live our lives, to show us the things that we need. But he still suffered with some of the same situations that we did. Jesus was a man. He got hungry. He got tired. He even got angry at times. I remember reading the story in the Bible about where he goes into the temple and he sees all these merchants in there selling these animals so that people could come in and buy them, and then go in and sacrifice them on the altar. Now, I'm thinking that's not what God would have wanted. God doesn't want a sacrifice of an animal. Why else did he put him here? For us to enjoy. So Myrtle started in with the Christ within. I have the Christ within. I am a child of God. I do not inherit illness because I am a child of God. I have the Christ within me. Now, isn't that a powerful feeling? Put your hand on your heart and say those words to yourself. I am a child of God. I do not inherit illness because I have the Christ within me. As we go on and we're studying in the Bible, and Jesus has started his ministry, and he goes out amongst the people, and first his crowds are real small and stuff, and he did a few minor healings. There was a man who was blind, and he told Jesus, I believe you can heal me, and Jesus reached down, picked up some dirt, and spit on it, rubbed it between his fingers, and smeared it on the guy's eyes. He said, open your eyes. And the man could see. You know what Jesus told him then? Do not tell anyone what I did. But guess what? He did. So it goes on to tell us that he comes to a man who is deaf. He can't hear. And so he says to this man, do you believe that you are a child of God? And the man shakes his head, yes. And he lays his hands over his ears and pulls them away. And now the man can hear. And what does Jesus say to him? Do not tell anybody. Guess what? He told. The crowds grew bigger. So, as time goes on and there's more meetings and more walking around and meeting people, it got to where Jesus had a lot of trouble finding a place to where he could be quiet. He needed that time in meditation. He was with the people constantly. And we all emanate a certain energy that can be drained from us just by working with people around us. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it can become very addictive to us and to the person in which we're feeding energy to. But Jesus was starting to get tired. And so he directed his disciples to pull this boat into the shore. And he got in the boat. And before they got it even 10 feet off the shore, he would lay down in the boat and was asleep. And the storm came. And the boat is being rocked from side to side. And for Jesus, it's like a rock. It's like a cradle. He's sleeping. He's connecting with the Father. But the disciples really, they were still working on that believing, that belief, that faith that it takes. And it does take faith. And they shook him, and they woke him up, and they said, we're about to drown. The boat's going to overturn. And Jesus looked at him and said, ye of little faith. Now, if any of you have ever been to Unity Village, there's a small prayer chapel. There's a large wall with a sky scene, and printed on it in gold letters is peace, be still. That is what Jesus said to the sea. He laid out his hand, the water stilled, and he was quiet. Now we can do that same thing when we're in those turmoils of dis-ease, of illness. Peace, be still. I don't know about you all, but I have a committee in my head that absolutely loves to meet at the foot of my bed. And when I go to sleep at night, they start in, and I'm tossing and I'm turning and I'm tossing. And when I finally let it into my awareness of what's going on, peace, be still. Myrtle had to come to those points too, when all these people around her are saying, you're so sickly, you're so ill, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're too sick. She had to go to the peace, be still, to shut down those voices. Because let me tell you, that human brain can take that stuff and just go nothing with it. Now in psychology, they taught us that there's 3 parts of the mind. There's the conscious, the superconscious, and then the main ego consciousness. And the subconscious, it's kind of like a pivot between what we call the Christ consciousness and everyday world. The only problem is that part of our mind cannot tell what is real and what is not. So it flips back and forth, and it takes from the human world and tries to take it into that Christ world. And so if you constantly hear you're sick, you're weak, you're frail, you're not good, you don't have enough money, you don't have this, you don't have that. Then it flips it over to the Christ mind, and the Christ mind won't take it. So now the subconscious mind is sitting there going, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? Peace, be still. Some of the most powerful words there are is peace, be still. So, as time goes on, Jesus was doing healings. Now, everybody had seen him do these, lay on his hands on healing and all this. But there was a centurion, kind of a highway patrolman or part of the guard at the church, at the Capitol. But he came running up to Jesus one day, and he knelt down, and he said, Lord, Lord, I have a servant who is ill, and he is about to die. He is as close as my friend. Would you please come and heal him. And Jesus' words to him, go, let it be done according to your faith. Wow. That's kind of putting it back on us. So the centurion said he believed, and he went home, and the servant was up around like nothing ever happened. Jesus never laid eyes on the man, never laid a hand on the man, but the man was healed. What word am I talking about that all these people are expressing is the word faith. Knowing that God is always there. And if I can just peace be still and remember that I am a child of God. Yes, I was born in this human form, but I am a child of God. I came here for an experience, and I will go back to that which I came from. But I am a child of God, and that part of me can never, ever be ill. Well, Myrtle took that on, and she prayed according to her faith. And let me tell you, that woman was a prayer warrior. She prayed morning, noon, and night. And as time came on, she got better. Charles is sitting over looking, what's going on here, you know? How come you're not limping? How come you're gaining a little weight? How come you're doing more during the day? Well, you know, Myrtle said, I'm a child of God. I can't be ill. I don't have time to be ill. I have God's work to do. Charles says, wow, that's really something. So Myrtle took on the affirmation. That's what she named it, was an affirmation that I am a child of God. Now, in Unity, they teach us there's a three-part piece. It's prayer, meditation, and affirmation. As I said in the meditation, prayer is where we get to yammer at God. God, I want this. God, do that. God, bless this. God, 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 God. And you know, when your mouth is running, it's really hard to hear somebody else or hear someone else. And so Myrtle had to find a way to quiet that voice. And so she started working with the affirmation, I am a child of God. But then she realized that there was another part of it, that I do not inherit illness. That's your denial. I am. When Moses asked God, what is your name? God said, I am that I am. Now, I had a wonderful teacher one time, and her name was Arlise Bradley, that explained what that I am that I am is. And it's when you say I am, and you finish that statement with anything, that's what you're calling forth within you. So how many of you have ever been sick and tired? When you say, I am sick and tired, what are you asking for? To be sick and tired. When I am angry, what are you asking for? Every situation in your life to make you angry. But when you can get to that point that you can say, I am a child of God, all of that other stuff goes away. So I really encourage you, even in joking or teasing or whatever, be extremely careful what you tie your I am to, because that's what you're going to draw into your life. Now, Myrtle heard those words the first time in 1886. 2 years later, she was totally healed. Not a bit of TB, was healthy, was running around Unity downtown, running around the village, doing all these kind of things, holding prayer services. People were coming to her for prayer. I know if you can do it, I can do it. And she just kept teaching these same things over and over again. I am a child of God. I cannot be ill. And so groups came to her much like they were to Jesus, because we always think that it's outside of us, when the truth of the matter, it's always been within us all along. I used to tell people they would introduce me as a licensed teacher. And I'd say, you know, that's not really what it is we do. It's just easier to say. Because what it is a licensed teacher is for It's to help you remember, because you already know it all. It's just with all the yammering over the years, you've forgotten. It's gotten pushed back. It's gotten pushed back. So when you have that moment of being able to bring it forth and knowing that you're a child of God and that you cannot be ill. Now, well, let's talk about that. I'm not talking about just physically. Now, I've been trained by Edwin Gaines, and I'm a master prosperity teacher. And one of the areas that most people suffer dis-ease is in their finances. And when you get to that point, you can say, I am a child of God. Therefore, I am lacking nothing. I can have it all. Can you believe that? Can you believe you can have it all? I do. I did. I still do. So as we went on and Myrtle did her prayer groups and started prayer groups, then they started getting letters from all over the world of pray for my son for this, or pray for my daughter for that, pray for this. So Myrtle knew that there had to be something to satisfy these needs, and she got a group of people together, and they became the Society of Silent Help, nowadays known as Silent Unity. Have any of you ever called Silent Unity? If you haven't, I encourage you to do so. There is such a power when you're sitting on that phone with that prayer warrior that it is just absolutely phenomenal. One of the strongest prayer warriors that I know is a Reverend called Chris Chenoweth. And I don't know how many of you know too much about my history, but in 2001, I was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. And it was in my left knee. And so I had called Chris and I said, I'm going to need prayer. Now, Chris was one of these people that he prayed with power. And let me tell you, he prayed with such power that you knew better than to go against that prayer. And his first words out of his mouth was, Debbie, you're a child of God. You did not inherit this from God. Well, the truth was, I had a lot of cancer in my family. But the doctors kept telling me it wasn't related to the kind of cancer I had. So I said to the doctor one day, I said, okay, you said I didn't inherit it from my family. But every factory I ever worked in, half the chemicals said carcinogenic. Shook his head, it's not related. I said, okay, if it wasn't hereditary and it wasn't carcinogenic, where did it come from? And he said to me, it was a mutated gene. You brought it into this life with you. For me, the whole room went white. I mean, such a bright, intense light. And I heard soul's choice. Now, in my family, we whispered the word cancer because it was a death sentence. And I realized that that was my soul's choice. God knew me before I was. He allowed me to come back into this world of existence, to get that thought, get that idea out of my head and get it away from as many people as I could. And that became my affirmation. I am a child of God. I did not inherit this cancer. Now, it was a long travel, but I'll tell you, it was a phenomenal one. The first time I had surgery, I had a Pentecostal, my sister's Pentecostal, one of my neighbors who was Methodist, and of course, Shay St. John was there. She was my boss. She was also Unity. And they were circling up around me to pray before I went to surgery. And all of a sudden, we hear a voice coming down the hall, wait for me, wait for me. And my doctor came in, and he jumped up on the bed and took hands with all those other faiths. Guess what his last name was? Rosenthal. I think that's Jewish. And Shay looked around the circle, and she goes, what power you have drawn to you. Well, you know, it wasn't an easy thing, because you just can't say, it's going to be and happens. There's too many things going on around me that I'm hearing. And I literally, the church I was going to, I finally had to start sneaking in the back door to come to church. Because there was a lady that every time she saw me coming in on crutches, she'd run over and she'd throw her arms around me and she'd go into tears. Oh, Debbie, I'm so sorry. How did this happen to you? Why is God punishing you? And I'm going, I can't hear this. I can't let that negative thought come into my head. Because God doesn't do to us. God only does through us. And so I went to my ministers and I said, look, this is getting bad. I'm either going to have to go somewhere else, or you're going to have to help me figure out how to keep her away from me. Well, the way the church was set up, the minister's office was right here, and they came right on stage. I got to where I came in through the minister's office, and most of the time I sat through the Sunday service sitting in the doorway of the minister's office, just so that Eloise couldn't see me. Because the minute she did, she wanted to go into that poor me victim. And let me tell you, that was the one thing I was adamant about. I was not going to be a victim. I was not going to be a victim. So, as time went on, I came through the surgery and had some other disagreements, and they decided I needed radiation. Well, there again, there was another blessing. Now, the thing I forgot to tell you is, I had a very rare form of cancer. It was only treated by 3 doctors in the United States. And one of them just happened to be at Menorah. Now, to me, that's not a circumstance. I mean, that's not a coincidence. I had just moved from down here up there 2 years before. Now I'm in the same place that this doctor is. So he sends me for radiation. My sister goes with me, and she's still not too sure about this unity thing. She needs that man to tell her what to do and be afraid of the gnashing of teeth and devil and all this. But so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Dr. Nye, and he says to me, Debbie, do you know what radiation is? Energy. Yes, it's energy. He said, now do you know what you are? Yeah, I'm energy vibrating at a very different level to that radiation. He said, yes. He said, this is going to be a much easier circumstance for you than it is for most, because you understand what's going on. He said, this is a medical doctor. This is not a homeopathic doctor. This is a radiologist. And he says to me, I'm going to make a suggestion that every time you have a radiation treatment, if you can find somebody who does Reiki or any kind of energy work, go to them and let them help you balance that energy so that it doesn't disrupt your whole system. Okay, I feel blessed. I've got a doctor that understands where I'm coming from. I have another doctor who understands who I'm coming from. So I go back to work that afternoon after having my first radiation treatment, and I'm telling Shay what's going on. She said, I'll be right back. Pretty soon, here she comes back. She has the CEO, Glenn Mosley. Glenn Mosley is a Hover Touch healer. He dropped to his knees and put his hands on my knee. He did that 3 times a week for 40 treatments. Now, you talk about humbling when the CEO of an organization as big as Unity and your top of your boss list is down on his knees with his hands on your knees. You have to know that you're being given a gift beyond belief, and what you do with it is what you're telling God you appreciate. And so as I moved forward in my life, I have gotten rid of the cancer. I went back for 5 years. And on the last time I went to see the doctor, I had a dear friend, a very elderly friend, and Jean wanted to go with me. She wanted to meet this fantastic doctor. And he had called me on Monday, and that kind of scared me because usually he didn't call unless it was bad news. And I said, so I don't need to come in on Friday? And he goes, yes, you do. Yes, you do. I need to check your knee. So he's down there, and he's checking my knee and stuff. And his nurse looks at him, and she said, doctor, why don't you tell her why you're really there? And he didn't answer, and she said, he lost a child this week. And it's very hard on him to lose a child to cancer. He takes it very personal. And he looked at me and he said, you know, Debbie, he said, I write a lot of prescriptions. A lot of prescriptions for medications, for surgeries, for, radiation. But there is one I wish I could write. I said, what's that? And he said, 2 hours with you. And I started laughing. I said, whoever would want to be condemned 2 hours to listen to me yammer? He said, no, you walked in here the first day knowing you were going to walk out. And he said, now I want to show you something. The last time I was in the hospital, I had gangrene, and they wanted to amputate my leg, and told them we weren't going there. I had already talked to the ultimate physician, and he said I could keep my leg. Well, it ticked a couple of doctors off. They thought I was being kind of arrogant. But he said, you walked in here knowing you were going to walk out. And he said, I want to tell you as a doctor, if patients walk in my door knowing or thinking that the cancer is going to kill them, it doesn't matter how good I am. He said, there's nothing I can do. And I just looked at him. I said, thoughts held in mind. And he said, well, I guess so. But he said, you're amazing. He said, I wished I could prescribe time with you for people to understand and to know you. A few years later, he called me and said, I'm presenting a seminar on cancer patients. He said, I'd love to have you be there with me. And I said, okay. And so I went, and I expected to see all these people who had newly been diagnosed with cancer. No, these are people who had been over cancer 15, 20 years. And they were still coming to support meetings. And I thought that was strange, Why do you need the support if you're healed? So one man raised his hand and he said, I go to every support meeting in the Kansas City area, and I've never seen you at one of them. You're going to tell me you did this with no support? I said, oh, absolutely not. I said, first, I had the support of God, because I'm a child of God, and I don't inherit illness. And I said, too, I had the support of my coworkers. I had the support of my family. I had the support of my church. I said, so I don't need to go over and over again of what, cancer is, what it was. A woman raised her arm and she said, well, how big was your cancer? I looked over at Dr. Rosenthal and I said, I have no idea. He said, she has no idea because she never owned it. And he said, we caught it in the early stages and she's still here with us. Now, what I have described to you here in these steps that Myrtle took and that I took are what Connie Fillmore Bazzi in the 80s put into a general set of principles called the 5 basic principles. The 5 basic principles are, there is only one presence and one power in my life, God the good, omnipotent. Now, I love that phrase, but I worked one Friday on the phones at the office, and this woman called in, and she said, my mother's going to a Unity church, and I want to know what you guys are all about. Well, how can you tell what Unity's about, in a 2-minute call? So I always lie back on something I know. So I said, well, we have 5 basic principles. And I said, God, there's only one presence in my life, God the good, the omnipotent. She goes, well, what about Satan? There is only one God in my life. Well, but what about Satan? There is only one presence in my life, God the good, omnipotent. And she goes, I just don't understand what you're saying. So I decided to give up on that one. So then I said, we have the Christ within us. You're blasphemy. And she hangs up on me. Well, I'm sorry for her. And I couldn't help her, but I didn't beat myself up about it. The second of the 5 basic principles is knowing that Christ within. You felt it. You laid your hand on your chest. You felt that Christ within. Then there's the law of mind action. What the mind dwells on is what you get. What you constantly tie your I am to is what you get. The fourth of the 5 basic principles is prayer, affirmations, and denials. Something we should be doing every day. And it's great to pray, and it's great to have affirmations. But where the power really does come in is the denial. Now, Myrtle said, I cannot inherit illness. the easiest words to say is, this has no power over me, and walk away. Now, I used to laugh. We've had several ministers we've lost in the last few years, but there was one called Sally Taylor. And let me tell you, when she got up to talk, her finger was up in the air, and she was always going at it. And I still remember her saying, you have no power over me, be gone. And people believed it. Same way when Chris Chenoweth prayed for me. Debbie, you are a child of God. You are going to be perfect. You are going to behold just the way you are. That's power. And in the end, the last of the 5 basic principles is practice. Now, Myrtle took her practice and made it grow to something as big as Silent Unity today. My practice is just walking around to people and sharing with them, like I am with you today, that we're all children of God, and we can have the absolute best of everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. That was just very powerful. And as a congregation, I would like for us to say together the affirmation, I am a child of God. I do not inherit illness. Okay? I am a child of God. I do not inherit illness. Again, thank you, Debbie. So at this point, being children of God, we are going to bless the children of God. And that's ourselves and the young ones among us, the young ones we know, the young ones we don't know. Children, you are a perfect child of God, and God and I love you just the way you are. Now I would like to invite everybody to stand up, and we'll do our peace song and then our prayer of protection.
of God watches over